Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm Kevin Kietzman in the seat for an hour until the Vince Show comes your way at 11 o'clock. We got a fine broadcast lined up for you today, including other cities around the United States and Canada now complaining about the state of Kansas for the predicament they've put them in with their sports teams. That's right. We're seeing media reports all over North America now of mostly cities that are very unhappy with the state of Kansas for giving so much to the Chiefs on the deal to move across the state line into the state of Kansas. This is actually kind of comical, if you ask me, but we'll explain it coming up in about a half an hour. Also later in the show, Bill Self. To this point, it's not been announced that he's been released from the hospital in Lawrence. The Hall of Fame legendary coach at the University of Kansas, who's been there 23 years, had his third incident in 33 months, apparently with a heart problem where he has had an aortic valve replacement. He has had problems with at least 2 stents 2 times. He wore a PICC line last year, which is a dripping IV for your heart, while he coached, and apparently had another episode yesterday preparing his team to get ready to leave and go to Colorado. I'll have some thoughts on that coming up in just a few minutes. But we start today with what should happen with what's going on in Minneapolis. There is a man named William Kelly. That's a very common name. Been a lot of William Kellys through the year. There's a man named William Kelly that on social media appears to be as unhinged as any American that there could possibly be. William Kelly was at that church over the weekend with Don Lemon as they went in and hassled all of the churchgoers in Minneapolis. He appears to be an incredibly awful person. He has made a video where he calls Pam Bondi horrific names. He's wearing a stocking cap that says F Trump, and he just gets unhinged with vile, obscene, foul language about the Trump administration and all of the things that are going on. Well, that in and of itself didn't make a lot of news. Okay, there's a guy unhinged. Clearly, they're going to pick this guy up. Again, his name is William Kelly. They're going to get him at some point because they're going to use the FACE Act and amazingly something called the Ku Klux Klan Act from 1871, which was designed to prevent Klan members from hassling freed slaves from entering church. Klansmen used to block churches and try to keep black freed slaves from being able to attend worship. So they passed the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, and this could be something they charged Don Lemon with. Can you imagine if they charged Don Lemon, a gay black man that considers himself still a journalist or in media, out doing social justice, and he gets charged under the Klan Act? Can you even imagine? But William Kelly is something even more special than Don Lemon. People will look at Don Lemon and they'll say, well, he's a journalist. Maybe he's got a defense here, free speech, journalism, freedom of the press, all those things. And maybe he does. It's a different hurdle to go try to prosecute a journalist than somebody who rolls into a church and does this. Now, I said yesterday on my podcast and on this radio show that maybe they didn't commit a crime until they were told to leave and then they were trespassing. Okay, maybe. Because churches, I think for a lot of churches, especially Christian churches, they're an open place of worship. Everyone is welcome. They sort of consider themselves public. So I said I didn't know the law, but now we know there's the FACE Act and the KKK Act, and they both look like they're rock solid. You can't do this to people worshiping. You cannot interfere with people's rights to worship in this country. So these are real laws, and Harmeet Dillon's at the DOJ, and she's promising swift action that by Sunday, everyone in America that worships will know that they are safe from these people, and they don't have to worry about them coming into the church. So what she's promising is by Sunday, they're going to round these people up and arrest all of them. That's what she's promising. Now, this is Pam Bondi's lifeline at the DOJ. She's kind of on fumes with most conservative and Republican people that she's done nothing. If they can do this swiftly, they need to start with William Kelly. And here's why. William Kelly needs to be the Renee Good. Have you ever noticed how Democrats are great at picking out George Floyd or Michael Brown or Renee Good or anybody that's a victim? They become the face of something and it gets completely distorted. As we've heard people say, oh, they're kidnapping citizens, peaceful protesters are being assaulted and murdered. It's not true. She was not a peaceful protester, and she wasn't assaulted. She was killed. She wasn't murdered. It's two different things. She was killed committing a federal crime, blocking federal agents. We know that. We've been through that. But William Kelly, well, this guy's a special sort. He's exactly what you want the face of the Minneapolis protests to be if you're the Trump administration. If you saw him, if you heard him, if you understand what it is that he does, this is the guy you want. Turns out William Kelly in Minneapolis, that has made a video and told Pam Bondi to come get him, has shown up regularly at a different church called Christ Church. It's in Washington, D.C. It's where Pete Hegseth goes to church. And William Kelly has been there, and according to one churchgoer at this church, he is vile and says gross things at families and children. He called my wife a C word, a word that refers to her as a prostitute, and a Nazi breeder. This dude goes to Pete Hegseth Church in D.C. and shouts down women and children. Now, the question is, if you can't do this, if these laws are really in place, and this is, I'm not a lawyer, I'm never going to play one here on radio. If this really is something you can prosecute, why didn't they do it when he was showing up at Pete Hegseth Church? Now, he has not been inside of Hegseth Church, and maybe he was smart enough to stay across the street and holler at these people, which he would have every right to do. But this is the one. This is how you turn the discussion of what's going on in Minnesota. Make him and Don Lemon the faces of what happened. That this is what these people will do. And if Harmeet Dillon is right, and I don't know that she is, she's been wrong before, they all talk big. All the Republicans at the DOJ talk big and then don't do anything. They all talk big, like, oh, we got this law, we got this act, we've got this on our side. We're going to go get them. And by Sunday, everybody in America will know that they're going to church and don't have to worry about this. In other words, we're making an example out of all these people. Well, don't do all these people. Go pick William Kelly up today. If you've got the law on your side and you know provably he was in that church doing this, get this guy. Because when it gets released on social media, all of the things that he's posted, how unhinged he is, how vile, disgusting, and gross he is, how he goes after women and children because guess what? He ain't very tough. I'll tell you that. That's why he goes after women and children. Make him the face of this thing. He's a sad, pathetic, angry, unkept, bearded, kind of disgusting, gross-looking guy with an F. Trump stocking cap on, white guy, who clearly has lost his mind in this world. Go get him. Then work on Don Lemon. It's what the Dems do. They pick one person out, they isolate it, and they go after it. It's the perfect way to do this. Now, at the same time this is going on in Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune decides, you know what? We need to go around the state and talk to some people in Duluth and some other places and find out what they think about all this. And so they did. To their credit, they ran the piece. They didn't like the piece. You could tell by reading it they didn't like it. But they did it. What they found when they went around the state and asked people what they thought about the question was, hey, what do you think about ICE being in Minneapolis, 3,000 strong, our police not being involved, and they're going door to door? And the reaction they got from the people across the state was, that's fine with us. We don't want to be like Minneapolis. Tim Walz, there's 87 counties in the state of Minnesota. Tim Walz won 13 of them. The other 74 last time were won by the Republican. Man, you step outside Minneapolis, St. Paul, and there is a river there. St. Croix River and the Mississippi run right through there. It's not far. If you drive from Minneapolis and go east, within 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so, you're in Stillwater, Minnesota, and across the river is Hudson, Wisconsin. But it's not a big population there. So it's not like Kansas City where the city's split, which actually benefits both states for being Republican. If you moved everybody in Kansas City to one side of the state line or the other, that state would become liberal. It would be Minnesota. You'd have Democrats in charge of everything. If you moved all of the people in Kansas City across one state line or the other, it would completely change the state. Everybody sees that. Everybody knows that. Minnesota is all right there in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they're in the same state. They are two cities. They're the twin cities. And they're both in the same state. But once you get outside of there, it's like the Minneapolis Star-Tribune did not know this. What are these young cub reporters that don't know where they live? You don't realize that the people outside of the city hate the city. You haven't figured that part out yet? You know all that disdain that city dwellers have? They like to live in high-rise condos, and they want everything downtown, and all those things are fine. The overwhelming majority of those people look down at somebody that lives in Paola. And guess what? The people of Paola don't give one flip about what that person living in downtown Kansas City thinks of them, because they love it there. They love it in the fresh air and open spaces and places where you carry your gun and it's in your glove box or in your truck and nobody thinks twice about it and nobody messes with you. You don't see a whole lot of criminals from the city going out to these places and committing crimes, do you? Seems like maybe it'd be easier to go to the small towns around Kansas City and rob somebody. I'd advise you don't do that, especially somebody's home. It will not go well for you. It will end poorly. And everybody knows this. And now, the Minneapolis Star-Tribune's just now figuring this out. It's unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. All right, good stuff. Let's go get some of these churchgoers. If there's really laws that protect this from happening, let's get these people this week. It is early. It's only been 48 hours since this happened. I get that, but you got to back this up. If Harmeet Dillon's out there saying we're going to have this taken care of by Sunday of this week, you better go do it. William Kelly is the guy to watch. He's as disgusting and despicable a human being as you'll ever meet. I mean, that you should. I can't even beep it and play it for you on radio. It's so despicable. This is a deranged man that goes to churches and goes after churchgoers and calls the women there Nazi breeders. Unbelievable. 913-408-7957. If you'd like to join the conversation, I'd love to have your call. Also, it was not grassroots. These people who were in that church were very organized. There's video of Don Lemon where they're giving out the address, and they're all there. They met in advance. They're going over this thing. Lemon interviews a guy. The guy he interviews is literally running for office in Minneapolis. He's a Democrat operative whose wife is already in some sort of high position with the Democrat Party of Minnesota. These were all insiders doing this. There's nothing grassroots about it. It's all organized. 913-408-7957. Uncanceled is underway. This is KCMO Talk Radio.
Stay tuned. Segment 2 of Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled coming up next.
From Gladstone to Gardner, it's Kevin Kietzman, Uncanceled, on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the show. It's always great to have you with us. We're taking your phone calls at 913-408-7957. If you'd like to join our conversation today, I'd love to have you on. Here is Jeff in Shawnee. Good morning, Jeff. What's going on in your world, buddy?
Hey, I'm from Shawnee, but I'm in Arizona, if that makes a difference. Hey, here's my clue on this. I was in water utility business for 20 years. When you get cold and wet, you're done. So you talked last week about the water canyons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all you got to do is put a little bit of RV antifreeze in them. They won't freeze. I guarantee you, Minneapolis, if it's below 30 degrees and you're soaking wet, you're done. It's over with. You're going home.
You don't want to be shooting antifreeze at these people.
Well, no, you just mix the antifreeze in with the water.
No.
It's RV antifreeze, it's safe to drink, but it'll keep it from freezing. It'll keep it from freezing. But when it hits them, it's going to freeze them.
I don't disagree with you, but there's no way they're going to put antifreeze in the water and start shooting it at people.
Well, it's RV antifreeze. Like I said, it's edible, but it's that pink stuff you put in.
When did you last eat it? When did you last eat it?
Oh, you wouldn't eat it on purpose, but
I see.
It's supposed to be.
And there's no warnings on the label that says if you ingest this and feel bad, call a doctor or see a medical professional. There's none of that.
It's potable, man. You're supposed to be able to put it in your water. Yeah, it's a little less than the real antifreeze. It's that pink stuff. They put it in there and everything, but they can keep the water can
I
freezing up.
so want to be with you, but I cannot embrace this until I do more research.
You do your research, man. I'm not a professional, but they shoot water cannons all over the time. Man.
I know. I can't imagine ingesting the antifreeze.
Well, if you open up a fire hydrant and shoot them, it's not going to freeze till it hits them and hits the street, and they'll be frozen. They can't walk, man. So
that's true.
No, once you get cold, you're done, man. Game over. Hey, take care.
Thank you, buddy. No, I'm for if you can spray water on them and make them miserable, I'm all for that if it doesn't freeze up. But I don't think we can put antifreeze in it. And he'd know, I guess, better than me. But even with the antifreeze in it, then it still would freeze. I'm not sure I really know. I don't know. Oh, here's Wes in Gladstone. The legend joins us here on a Tuesday. Hi, Wes.
Yeah, hey, while in the Great White North, don't eat the yellow snow and don't drink the pink stuff, okay?
Exactly.
So what a lot of people don't know is that the Democratic Party in Minnesota is the Democratic Farm Labor Party, the DFL, okay? If they're going to try to go out and find out who doesn't want to be like Minneapolis, they need to find these people in the rural areas that are still voting for the DFL because their parents and their grandparents always voted for the DFL. Then you can tell if there's going to be a change or not, okay? The big issue is, why are they defending the Somalis so much? There's 84,000 Somalis in Minnesota. Let's say half of them are adults. There's 42,000 votes, not even counting the ones that you can manufacture. And in a state like Minnesota, which I think is probably about the same size as the state of Missouri, a solid 42,000 voting block, you'll never overcome it.
I'm with you. And look, it's as simple as this. It's pretty easy to look at Minnesota and know this. And this is true in a lot of places, okay? Arizona, I'm very familiar with Arizona. That's one of them as well. If you do voter ID and in-person voting, the Democrats are done. They know this. They know this. They are done everywhere. If you literally have to go vote and show an ID in order to cast your vote, the Democrats are cooked. That's why I always say this is a center-right country. And that really hasn't changed. It's been that way forever. It really hasn't changed. What's changed is the way we voted. During COVID, the mail-in thing was clearly a scam. Clearly. This advance voting and allowing ballots to come in for 10 days after the election is ripe with fraud. Illegal aliens in California, they found hundreds of thousands of them. Have you seen what's happened in Oregon? They just wiped 800,000 people off the voter rolls. It's the first time they've looked at their voter rolls in 11 years. And they wiped out 800,000 people. They were either not citizens or they're dead or they haven't voted. They don't know where they are. Maybe they've moved. They're cleaning it up. Now, If we really, really, really want to win elections, it is imperative before the midterms that the Republicans pass something with a voter ID law. I don't see why this is so hard. It's simple. No, it's hand counting, it's voter ID, it's in-person voting unless you have some sort of a ginormous medical exemption that a doctor can give you. If you're bedridden, if you're older, if you're in a nursing home, things of that nature, we can find different ways to do this and allow you to vote. I get all that. Why can't we make that the law for president and anything to do with Congress? I don't, you can't take things away from the state, I don't think. If California wants to keep doing what it is that they're doing, okay, but not for president or Senate or the House. We've got to get to a place where we do better than that. I have run long. I'm terrible. Mark, thank you for picking me up. All right. We got more coming up, so stick around. This is Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio. Hang on the line. We can get to your calls. I still want to talk about Bill Self and other cities mad at Kansas for luring the Chiefs. Straight ahead.
We'll be back with your calls on Kevin Kietzman Show coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, segment 3.
Hey, it's Vince Gallane's Catch My News Show at 11 o'clock after Kevin Kietzman on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
All right, here we go. We'll get back to the phones in just a moment. I found it interesting that other cities are now complaining about the state of Kansas for luring the Chiefs across the state line. There's a story in a Baltimore newspaper. There's another Canadian story out there that other cities are mad that the state of Kansas has paid for 70% of this facility, which is, well, you may have heard it on a radio show or a podcast the last couple of years that this was the greatest offer any team had ever been offered. The Royals have the same offer, ladies and gentlemen. And according to Ty Masterson, it's still good. There are not others in Kansas saying that, but Ty Masterson seems to think the Royals did everything they needed to get their 70%. So the Chiefs got $2.8 billion toward a $4 billion project. And according to this story, that tops the previous best, which was, this is unbelievable, Montreal's Olympic Stadium, Montreal, Canada, in 1976, adjusted dollars for today, what they were given by Canada, and Montreal was $1.48 billion. So this is still twice as much, even adjusted to today's dollars, as any sports venue in the United States or Canada has ever received. They broke the bank, which is why I kept saying over and over and over, this is not a contest. Nobody's ever been offered what Kansas is offering. I can't believe to this point the Royals have goofed this up this poorly. They have that much money that was sitting there, and maybe the appetite goes away. Maybe Kansas at some point just says, you know what, we've lost our appetite for this. Royals, did they screw up? Are they still eligible? Well, according to Ty Masterson, they are, but that doesn't mean it would work out in the end, that Kansas would honor the deal, that they may not like the way it's structured or this or that. There could be problems in Overland Park or Leawood or whatever may be the case. I don't know. All I know is if the Royals blew this, they blew the greatest opportunity in the history of Major League Baseball. No baseball owner has ever had 70% of a stadium paid for by a state. And it's amazing to me. There's a guy at Kennesaw State, a professor, is cited in this story that this is unbelievable. We can't believe this is adjusted for dollars. This is the biggest ripoff ever. I'm like, the offer's been out there for 2 years. Did nobody know that the offer was there? Why is everybody's reaction on this thing what it is? I can't believe people are in shock with the deal the Chiefs got. It's just, I feel awful that I didn't shout loud enough, that it was just sitting there. There was nothing Missouri could do here. There was nothing they could do. The Royals are the team that has absolutely stated, we're not renovating. We're building new. And they had the greatest offer in the history of Major League Baseball. You're telling me they let that slip away? I find that hard to believe. I find it hard to believe that the Royals have let that slip away. I guess maybe we'll find out in due time. But the reaction to this thing, the craziness over it, of people so upset, we chronicled this about St. Louis yesterday on the show. St. Louis has just all but disappeared as a great American city. It's just not relevant in people's minds. I'm not saying that living in St. Louis is bad. I'm not saying there aren't great things there and great people and that there's anything wrong with Missouri or any of that stuff. I'm just saying in the consciousness of America and the world and whatever, like St. Louis used to be a big deal, and it just isn't a big deal anymore. And my personal belief is you lose 2 NFL teams, you've shouted to an entire country that we don't know what we're doing and we're not a very good or cool place to be. And when those things happen, you see what happens, and it's happened in St. Louis. All right, we're going to, I believe this is Jerry in St. Joseph. Good morning, Jerry. How are you today?
Good morning, Chris. Hope you're doing good.
Thank you. I'm well.
One real quick on Minnesota, 2 things. They got Don Lemon on record and sound. He bought donuts and coffee for these people before they went over to the church.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So the one thing about it, he wants the AG to come after him because he wants the clicks. He wants to be a face in this illegal Minnesota immigrant program that they've got going on up here, all these crazy protesters and stuff. So that's all I wanted to say. Get quick. I know you want to talk about other things, so
no, you're
I
good.
just wanted to put my 2 cents in.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you calling Kev.
All right, Chris. Bye.
He called me Chris twice.
I know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I even said thanks for calling Kev. Hey, thanks. I'm new to this town. I understand you might not know the name. Just another rookie on the radio. Nobody knows his name, man. This is one awesome, humbling business. I do love it. I do love it.
It's been about 2.5 years since DeGaule's been on here.
It's been a while.
But
it's been a while. I love Chris. And I know this audience loved him as well. So I know that I'm certainly a lot different than Chris doing this, but that's awesome. That's truly really good stuff. Really good stuff. All right, so we don't have anything new today on Bill Self, the basketball coach at Kansas. But as it happened yesterday and unfolded, immediately we thought of the previous incidents that occurred. One at T-Mobile Center in Kansas City at the Big 12 tournament 2.5 years ago. And then another last summer in July in Lawrence, where Bill Self was taken to the hospital for his heart issues. I want to be very cautious with what I say here because everyone's health has a right to privacy, and everybody's decision and what they do in their life is certainly a personal decision. But I do want to share with you a couple of things. And I do much more on the podcast today. This is my lead story at Kevin Kietzman Has Issues. If you want to go to kkhasissues.com, I expand greatly on this, but I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version right here on Uncanceled. But we go into great detail on this. I've been around coaches for 40 years, and we've got a couple of extreme situations right now. With Andy Reid hiring Eric Bieniemy, I feel like he's entering a phase where he's kicking his feet up on the table saying, my career's an accomplishment. I'm going to bring my buddy back in here. Patrick likes him. This is going to be comfortable. It'll at least feel better if we're not winning, and I got a couple more years in me. We'll see what happens. I don't feel like Andy Reid is challenging himself or the staff. I don't like the hiring of Eric Bieniemy. I'm not saying it can't work. I'm no expert in it. It might go great guns. Maybe Bieniemy learned a whole bunch of stuff the last few years that he brings in, and it's new. Anything's possible. Maybe just the comfort of having them there is better, and it brings Kelsey back, and it gets Mahomes to a better place. These things are all possible. It's sports. But it doesn't look like Andy's really challenging himself. It doesn't. It looks like he just loves coaching. Coaches love to coach. I cite 3 different people that we've had in Kansas City that went through health situations that were very serious, and yet they coached on. The first that we remember was Dick Vermeil, who took many, many years off of coaching, came back, won a Super Bowl with the Rams, then went back to the broadcasting for a while. He was the original coach that had burnout. It was anxiety, it was stress, it was blood pressure. His doctors told him it wasn't good for him. He was sleep deprived. He wasn't eating right. Nothing was going good in Dick Vermeil's world except he was winning football games. But he knew it wasn't good for him. And he got out. Then he came back and he won again. And he's like, I shouldn't do this. When he came to Kansas City, Dick Vermeil was not Dick Vermeil. And they won some games. But Dick Vermeil was not, he was no longer burning the midnight oil, cutting edge. I'll never forget asking him about players, and he would go, what number? And he would know the players by number on his own team, not the opponents. He knew his players by number, but not their names. I'm like, yeah, this guy's not engaged. That's not normal. He doesn't really know his team. And I found that to be really kind of shocking. But it's what he needed to do to not work so hard to stay out of it. They offered him so much money to come coach here, he had to say yes. So we saw that. I also watched Bill Snyder at Kansas State work through very serious cancer. And we watched how frail he got. And I don't know what he weighed out there coaching, but it couldn't have been over 120 pounds. And he didn't look good, but he loved coaching. And that's all he wanted to do was coach. When they said, we don't think you're a very good coach anymore, he took 3 years off. And then he said, yeah, well, guess what? I'm going to go coach somewhere else if I can't coach here. And they said, don't do that. We'll bring you back. And they brought him back. And he coached some more, and he won another Big 12 title, and he's a legend. But I think Bill Snyder would readily admit that a lot of what he did through the years was not good for his health, maybe not the best for his personal life, relationships, whatever, but it drove him. It was his identity. My personal hope is that's not where Bill Self is, but every indication that's exactly what he is. And it's up to him. It's his call. But it's been 33 months now, and Bill Self has had 3 separate incidents at work involving heart issues. He has an aortic valve inserted in his heart. Twice, the stents haven't worked and got replaced. Last year, he wore a PICC line. If you don't know what a PICC line is, you couldn't see it on him. It's a little IV. It drips medicine into his heart. It's not an IV like you and I think of an IV. You know, like these Vegas dudes that go get all hungover and get an IV for hydration. That's not what it is. This was medicine for his heart, and he continued to coach. And it looked like he was healthier and doing better. Then he had a problem last July, and the doctor said, oh, you can coach again, but you have to change everything. You need to change how you eat, how you sleep, the hours you work, the things that you do. And he said, okay, I'm all in. I'm going to do all that. He came back, and he has just looked great this year. He's looked better than his basketball team. Like, you can't look at somebody and think they look better than Bill Self. We've seen this with people in sports. We see it with people in our own lives. I have people in my life, in my circle, that have been through heart problems. They are healthier and living better now than they ever have, but they're doing it because they're terrified that the big one could be coming. Now, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I don't know if Bill Self's even eligible for some big incident. But what we know to be true is he has had the best treatment you can possibly get, and it's not completely working for him. This is scary. It's why they brought in Jacques Vaughn. I said last summer after Self had the incident and they brought Jacques Vaughn in, Jacques Vaughn did not play for Bill Self. He played for Roy Williams. Bill Self doesn't know Jacques Vaughn all that well. Jacques Vaughn, Kansas great, NBA coach for a couple of teams, has coached head coach in the NBA, 2 different teams, hundreds of games he's been a head coach. It was obvious the reason Jacques Vaughn was brought in were 2 reasons. Well, 3. Kansas legend, all kinds of head coaching experience, and Kansas has never had a black head coach. Now, that's not a knock on Kansas. They've only had like 8 coaches in history or something. It's ridiculous. Like, there's been 3 in my lifetime. I can only remember 3. Ted Owens, Roy Williams, and Bill Self. That's it. So I'm not saying anything. But it is also true, this is the perfect place to say this, Kansas really didn't have much of an option after Bill Self. They were going to have to hire a black coach. There can't be a handful of teams in America that have not hired a black coach. I thought maybe Danny Manning would be that guy. Well, Jacques Vaughn's a much better person than Danny Manning. He's an experienced head coach. He's had some success in the NBA. I get all this. I assume Jacques Vaughn will be coaching the team tonight at 10 o'clock, although that's not been announced. I can't imagine why he wouldn't. He's the only guy on the bench well, Doc Sadler's down there. He was a head coach. Jacques Vaughn was brought in for a reason. They knew this was a possibility. When Kansas puts out a release and say out of abundance of caution, Bill Self was taken to the hospital for an IV, it makes it sound like he got dehydrated and we're just checking him out. There's no way that's the story here. The story's bigger than that. And everybody knows it. And we simply hope the best for Bill Self, whatever that is. If that's continuing to coach and every year or every 10 or 12 months he has an episode and has to go to the hospital and he just wants to keep coaching with PICC lines and stents and artificial valves, and that's his life and that's what he wants to do, and that's the way he wants, it's his life. It's his life. But my goodness, the 3rd time you've been rushed to the hospital, and it is abundantly clear that the next head coach of the Kansas Jayhawks is Jacques Vaughn. He would never have come here unless that was at least a handshake deal. If and when coach hangs it up, you're the guy. No search, no anything. They just name him. And I suspect he will coach tonight. For a coach being thrust into the spotlight as the interim head coach, it's a pretty good situation as these things go. If you're going to be on the road, he's at Colorado and he's at Kansas State this week. That's a couple of winnable games. They're going to be favorites in both games, and they should win them both. We'll see how it goes. That's the lesser story. That doesn't matter much. But this is a lot more than abundance of caution. Kansas has been preparing for this moment. That's why Jacques Vaughn is here. Sports teams, it looks so easy. We just watch, and we watch the games they play, and we think, okay, they just show up and they play their games. These are massive businesses that leave no stone unturned. Kansas is in good hands tonight with the guy they got coaching. Their staff's good enough to keep winning and do what they need to do while Bill Self gets better. We just want to wish the best to Bill Self, hope that he gets better, and I hope that he gets to live his best life, whatever that iteration is going forward. We come back, we'll check in with Mark Van Parlay. He's got some thoughts on the Indiana National Championship last night, and I can't wait to hear if he disagrees with me about Eric Bieniemy. That's next on KCMO Talk Radio.
From Leewood to Liberty, it's Kevin Kietzman Uncanceled on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
My wife just texted me, "You idiot! You left out Larry Brown." Well, yes, Larry Brown won the national championship at Kansas. Those were the coaches, but it's pretty obvious where Kansas, I think, is going to turn tonight and going forward in the absence of Bill Self, whether that's one game or whatever it may be. It does not look like he's going to be in Boulder tonight, I wouldn't think, if he's still in the hospital. Okay, Mark, national championship last night. Fernando Mendoza, what an unbelievable run with 9 minutes to go in the game. That's going to rank as one of the most iconic plays in the history of college football, is it not?
I think so. The way he got hit, put one hand down, slapped the hand on the ground, then leapt into the end zone. That was incredible.
Jessica and Cabo were both sleeping on the couch when it happened, and I went, "No, my God!" And they both just jump up. I'm like, no. Yeah. It is amazing how in sports, when you see an iconic play that you'll never forget, it the second you see it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, if they'd lost that game,
yeah,
that would have ruined that play.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They tried to give it away. This was the team that didn't commit penalties all year, and they had 2 at the end of the game that gave Miami a chance to win. I was very surprised by that part.
It's like when the Chiefs ran Wasp in their first Super Bowl win. If they hadn't won, nobody would remember that.
Yeah. I thought Miami, I don't like Miami. I thought they were cheap shot artists. I thought they should have had a bunch of personal fouls in the first half. The things they did after the whistle was annoying. They never got called for any of it. They were shoving at players on the ground. I don't ever want to watch Miami play football again.
Yeah, I don't like Michael Irvin on the sideline. None of that.
No, I don't like any of that stuff. Terrible. Eric Bieniemy back with the Chiefs as offensive coordinator. Mark Van Sickle. Come on, this is not a good idea.
I mean, if they're going to be within the Andy Reid tree, I don't hate it. So that's the only reason I don't really mind it. It was either him or Kafka, in my opinion.
Other than the fact that the players love him, what can you say that Eric Bieniemy is good at? Do you know any plays he drew up? He doesn't call the plays.
I was going to say, I did see him on that Wasp play. I saw him and Mahomes collaborating on that one.
Wasn't that Mahomes' idea?
It was Mahomes' idea.
Thank you. I rest my case. And he told Bieniemy told Andy, and he's like, yeah, let's do that.
Let's go.
Great. I like the collaboration, but come on. This just seems too comfortable to me.
Yeah.
I don't like this. Did you know that Andy Reid and one other coach in the AFC are the only head coaches in the AFC since 2022 for the last 3 years? The other 14 are all new now. Well, some of them aren't hired yet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the next longest tenured coach? 2022. We're just talking about 3 seasons now.
Yeah.
23, 24, 25.
It's got to be the now I'm blanking on it.
He was in a Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. The
Zach
Bengals.
Taylor.
Yeah, Bengals.
Zach Taylor, the Bengals. I had the hardest time last night trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of those incredible stats. When you hear something like that, you just can't believe it. You can't believe it. So 14 of the 16 head coaching jobs in the AFC have turned over since the 22 season.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. As McDermott is out at Buffalo, and John Harbaugh is kicking himself for taking the Giants job.
Would have been good in Buffalo.
And the guy from Cleveland, Stefanski, he took the Atlanta job, right?
Yeah, yep.
Kicking himself. Could have been the Buffalo coach.
Matt Nagy to Buffalo?
Oh, my God. Oh, boy. That's going to do it for this episode of Uncanceled. Thanks for listening to KCMO Talk Radio. Everybody says, why don't you do another hour? Well, just go to kkasissues.com. We got a whole other hour right there.